Hello, Miss Matthews here. Welcome to this brief video that will walk you through the notice and note method of close reading that uses signposts and anchor questions. So what is a sign? A sign out in the world tells us many things. It can tell us where we are. It can give us direction. It can give us guidance. And essentially any sign you see really gives you more information to better understand a situation that you are in. When you see a sign that says road construction ahead, you know that you're going to have to be slowing down, that you're going to need to be aware of construction vehicles on the highway. When you see a railroad crossing sign, you have a deeper understanding of your situation, that you may need to come to a stop, that when those bars begin to go down, a train is coming and you need to be aware of that. Well, in literature, there are signposts that we can also look for that help give us a better understanding of the situation we're reading about. There are 6 signposts we're going to talk about in this video. They are called contrasts and contradictions, the aha moment, tough questions, words of the wiser, again and again, and memory moments. And as we go through these, I'll define them for you. I'll give you clues for how to recognize these signposts when you see them. You will be given an anchor question that you ask yourself when you come across the signpost, and I'll give some examples of each one so you have an idea of what to look for as you read. The first signpost is contrasts and contradictions. The definition there is when a character acts in a way that is contradictory or unexpected given how he or she normally acts. The clue to this is when an author shows you feelings or actions that the reader has not seen before or doesn't expect. When you see a contrast and contradiction in the story, you stop and you ask yourself, why is the character doing that? So here's an example of a contrast and contradiction. This is from the novel To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Overnight, it seemed, Jem had acquired an alien set of values and was trying to impose them on me. Several times he went so far as to tell me what to do. So I noticed this is a part of the story where Jem is now acting differently than he had been before. So I stop and I ask myself, why is the character doing that? Here's an example of an answer. I'm going to mark my book C and C for contrasts and contradictions, and then in the margin or on a post-it note, I answer that anchor question. Why is the character doing that? Well, Jem seems to be growing up and feeling more like an adult. He's even trying to show authority over his little sister. So really what you're doing with these signposts is when you see them, you stop, you ask the question, and you jot the answer to that question in the margin or on a post-it note. Here's our second signpost, the aha moment. An aha moment is when a character realizes or starts to realize something that changes his or her actions or thinking. Clues to this are when characters say things like, I realized, or I suddenly knew, or now I knew why, things like that. When you come across an aha moment, you stop and you ask yourself, how might this change things? Here's another example of the aha moment. This is also from To Kill a Mockingbird. To Kill a Mockingbird. Scout, I think I'm beginning to understand something. I think I'm beginning to understand why Boo Radley's stayed shut up in the house all this time. It's because he wants to stay inside. So I notice, aha, we have someone suddenly understanding something. So I stop and I ask myself, how might this change things? So on my post-it note, I write, aha. And Jem is upset by the verdict of the case, and his disappointment changes his view of justice in the world. Again, when you notice the signpost, you stop, you highlight the signpost in the book, and then in the margin or on a post-it note, you write your answer to the anchor question. The third signpost is called tough questions. Definition of that is when a character asks a tough question that reveals his or her concerns and shows you a bit of their inner conflict. A clue to that is when the character asks him or herself a difficult question. So when I see these tough questions, I stop and I ask myself, what does this question make me wonder about? So here's an example from To Kill a Mockingbird. Why do you reckon Boo Radley's never run off? Scout asks this at one point. So I stop. What does this question make me wonder about? That's my anchor question. So on my post-it note, I write TQ for tough question, and I write my answer. I wonder what Boo's life is really like. I wonder if he has any choice about leaving the house. Words of the wiser is the next signpost. The definition of that is when an older character, a mentor or an advisor, gives advice or insight to the main character. Clues to this is it's often a wiser, older character who offers a life lesson, usually in a quiet moment of the book. When I come across that, I stop and I ask myself, what's the life lesson and how might it affect the character? Here's the example from To Kill a Mockingbird. First of all, he said, if you can learn a simple trick, Scout, you'll get along a lot better with all kinds of folks. You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view. Sir? Until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. So I stop. Seems like a words of the wiser. And I ask myself, what's the life lesson and how might it affect the character? On my post-it note, I indicate that it's words of the wiser, and then I answer that anchor question. Atticus is telling Scout to be open to other people's point of view. Maybe her view of Boo will change. Again and again. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's when the author keeps bringing up the same image, phrase, or reference. Obviously, the clue there is a repeated image, phrase, or reference. When you see this, you stop and you ask yourself, why does this keep showing up again and again? Here's an example from To Kill a Mockingbird. Jem and I were trotting in our orbit one mild October afternoon when our knothole stopped us again. Something white was inside this time. So this is not the first time the children have seen something in the knothole of the tree. I notice it comes up again and again, so I stop and I ask myself, why does this keep showing up again and again? And on my post-it, I put a little A and A to indicate which signpost it is, and then I answer that anchor question. The kids keep finding things in the tree near the Radley house. Maybe Boo is leaving them presents? And finally, memory moment. The definition of a memory moment is when the author interrupts the flow of the story by letting the character remember something. So clues are I suddenly remembered, or I remember, or thinking back. When you see these memory moments, you stop and you ask yourself, why might this memory be important? Here's an example of a memory moment from To Kill a Mockingbird. I was wide awake, remembering what Dill had told me. Scout, said Dill, she just fell down in the dirt, like a giant with a big foot just came along and stepped on her. So I see someone remembering something, I stop and I ask myself, why might this memory be important? I put my post-it, I put MM for memory moment, and I answer that anchor question. Scout remembers what Dill told her about Mrs. Robinson reacting to her husband's death. This is important because it shows how crushed she was by the news. So I hope this helps you understand a little better the method for the notice and note close reading with signposts and anchor questions. Of course, if you have any questions about this, feel free to email me at annie.matthews@providencehigh.org. Thanks for listening.